Right, so this time we're diving into a story that's, well, it's got it all. Glamour, hustle, and some seriously dark accusations. We're talking about Sean Diddy Combs.
Diddy.
Yeah, Diddy. The guy who went from, like, intern to hip-hop icon, built this whole empire.
Right.
Basically wrote the book on hip-hop hustle.
Yeah.
But, and this is a big but, lately there have been some seriously dark accusations that have surfaced. And it makes you wonder, who the real asterisk Diddy is.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking sex trafficking, racketeering, abuse, just allegations that paint a very different picture from the champagne and diamonds image we're used to.
Right.
So what are we going to do today? Well, we're going to try to sift through all of this, try to understand what led to these charges and figure out how these two versions of Diddy, the mogul, the monster, how they could exist in the same person. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay, so rewind with me for a second. Diddy's rise in the music industry, it was like a rocket launch. Intern to running Bad Boy Records, signing like huge asterisk names, shaped the sound of a generation.
He did.
It wasn't just luck, right?
No, not even close. What Diddy did for Black representation in the music industry, especially back in the 90s, I mean, it was huge. I mean, you got to think about it. This is an industry that wasn't exactly, welcoming to Black artists, executives, entrepreneurs. And here comes Diddy, not just breaking down the door, but like building his own house,
Yeah.
It was that classic rags to riches story.
Yeah, and he played that up.
Oh, absolutely.
But even early on, I don't know, I remember there were these whispers, these little hints that maybe the bad boy image wasn't all an act. Like, I remember thinking, did anyone else catch that? When he'd say something a little too close to the line, like on MTV or something?
Right, and that's where this whole idea of like hyperbole in the music industry comes in, particularly in hip hop. Like, think about it. The culture is larger than life personas, right? It's I am a savage. It's almost expected.
Yeah.
But the thing is, that line between persona and reality, it can get so blurry, and sometimes it allows people to just like excuse or overlook behavior that honestly should be setting off alarm bells.
Yeah, totally. So how does someone with that much charisma, power, how do they manage to keep those whispers quiet for so long? It makes you wonder how many people knew something was off, but they just did not want to rock the boat.
Right, and that's the million-dollar question. And it gets at the heart of these allegations that are coming out now, because Diddy's success wasn't built in a vacuum. He was surrounded by people, employees, business partners, fans, all part of this ecosystem.
Yeah.
It's like this network.
And they're all benefiting.
Exactly, they're all benefiting, so no one wants to question the man behind the curtain. It's a scary thought.
It is.
And that's where the story really takes a turn. Because for a long time, those whispers were just whispers. But then things started to change. Remember Cassie Ventura, Diddy's ex, right? Her lawsuit, I think that really seemed to kind of break the dam.
Oh yeah, that's right. She filed that lawsuit, what was it, like 2-3 years ago? Alleging years of abuse, right?
Yeah.
Didn't that kind of get brushed aside at the time, though?
It did, yeah. It was definitely overshadowed by, Diddy's whole persona. But the details, man, they were pretty awful. And I think what's really important here is that her case seemed to, open the floodgates, More people were suddenly willing to come forward, tell their own stories. And that's when it escalated from whispers to, well, a full-blown legal nightmare for Diddy.
And that brings us to this recent indictment. Sex trafficking, racketeering, I mean, those are some serious charges.
No, they are. And remember, an indictment, it's not just some random accusation, right? It means a grand jury heard enough evidence to believe there's probable cause that a crime was committed. So this is where it gets really real for Diddy.
Okay, so break it down for me. What exactly are they accusing him of?
Okay, so the indictment alleges that Diddy used his power, his influence, his resources, basically to exploit and control people for sexual purposes.
Right.
And it goes deeper than that even. We're talking about these, get this, freak-offs.
Freak-offs?
Yeah, these alleged parties that could go on for hours, often involving, coerced sex acts.
Freak-offs? Is that some kind of euphemism? It sounds cartoonishly sinister almost.
Yeah, but according to this indictment, these were very real events. And they weren't exactly a secret, at least within Diddy's inner circle. In fact, some are even alleging that he filmed these encounters.
What?
Used them as a way to, further manipulate and control people.
That's just chilling. And this indictment, it even mentions his whole network of other people who were allegedly involved. security staff, personal assistants, even some higher-ups at Bad Boy. I mean, it's terrifying to think that this kind of abuse was happening, allegedly, right under everyone's noses, that so many people were complicit.
Yeah, and it's a reminder that these systems of power and abuse, they often thrive on silence. Sometimes it's active participation, people directly involved, right? But often, and this is the insidious part, it's more about looking the other way, justifying it. Or, and I think this is a big part of it, people are just too afraid to speak up.
Yeah. And we've kind of seen this before, haven't we, R. Kelly? Right? I mean, how do these powerful figures, how do they get away with it for so long? Is it just money? Influence? Or is there something else going on?
It's complicated, right? I mean, there's definitely the money and the influence. I mean, these guys, they've got access to the best lawyers, publicists, you name it. People who can make problems go away and spin the narrative. But then there's the fear.
The fear? You mean from victims?
From victims, yeah. But from everyone else around them, too. People are terrified of losing their jobs, their reputations, their place in industry. The music business, it's cutthroat, right? And speaking out against someone like Diddy, that can be career suicide. And then you add on that whole culture of silence. This is just how things are done.
Right.
It becomes this self-perpetuating cycle.
And we, like the public, we're a part of that too, aren't we? We buy the albums, we watch the interviews, we click the headlines.
Yeah.
It's like we're complicit in propping these systems up, in a way.
Yeah, it's an uncomfortable truth. But it's something we have to think about. Because if we want to see things actually change, it's not enough to just point fingers. We have to really examine the systems and our role in them.
It's heavy.
Yeah.
And in the middle of all of this, Diddy's denying everything.
Oh, yeah, he is. Pleaded not guilty to all charges. His lawyers are fighting like hell to discredit these allegations, saying it's all motivated by money, revenge, that it's just disgruntled exes trying to cash in.
Which is, it's the classic defense, isn't it? But it's still hard to ignore the sheer volume of accusations here, spanning decades even.
Exactly. And this isn't just a he said, she said. We're talking potential witnesses, alleged recordings, financial transactions, all this stuff that could back these claims up.
This sounds like it could be the start of a very, very public and messy legal battle.
Oh, absolutely.
But then beyond the legal stuff, there's the impact on Diddy's legacy, too. Right? I mean, this isn't just some tarnished reputation. It makes us rethink everything about someone who we thought was an icon.
For sure. And that's where it gets really complicated. Because we're basically being forced to reconcile the art with the artist. Can you still bump Coming Home knowing what we know now?
That's what everyone's asking. It's not easy.
Not at all. And it all points back to this bigger issue, accountability. Especially in industries like this where the power imbalances are so huge. When does a pattern of behavior become undeniable? When do we finally listen to the whispers? What are we willing to do about it?
Okay, so we're talking about accountability, but what does that actually look like? Is this about Diddy, going to jail, or is it more about some big cultural shift?
It's probably both, honestly. I mean, if he's found guilty of these charges, yeah, there are going to be some serious consequences, but accountability, it's got to be bigger than just punishment, right?
Yeah.
We need a change in the system itself.
Okay, so then how do we even begin to change something that big? I mean, this is the music industry we're talking about. It feels like every time you turn around, there's a new scandal, another case of abuse. Is anything actually going to change?
Well, it's definitely a long road. But I think we are seeing some progress. Think about the impact of #MeToo.
Right.
That's been huge for giving survivors a platform, right? Holding abusers accountable. And I think we're starting to at least talk about these things differently. People are more willing to believe survivors.
Yeah. And social media has been big for that too, hasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's like those whispers we were talking about. They don't just disappear anymore. They get amplified, shared, debated. Social media was a game changer for getting those voices heard.
For sure. But it still took, decades for R. Kelly to be held accountable, even with everything that was out there. So how do we make sure that doesn't keep happening? How do we actually stop these systems of abuse?
$1 million question, right? There's no easy answer. But I think it starts with education, honestly. We have to talk about power, about consent, about exploitation. And we have to create a culture where survivors feel safe coming forward, where they're believed, supported, not silenced.
And that's on all of us, isn't it? It's not just about canceling people. It's about looking at our own biases, being honest about how we play a part in these systems. Who are we choosing to support and why?
100%. We're all responsible for creating a safer, more equitable industry. And it starts with being informed, being a critical consumer. and using our voices to amplify the stories that need to be heard.
Yeah. I think this whole thing with Diddy, it's a reminder that we can't just ignore these issues no matter how much we love someone's music, you know? We have to hold everyone accountable, no matter who they are.
Absolutely. And sometimes that means having some tough conversations, you know?
Right.
Being willing to challenge the stories we've always been told, reassess our own beliefs. It's not easy, but it's how we make real change.
Well said. And it's clear that this story, it's not over yet. Diddy's legal stuff is just getting started, and the music industry's at a crossroads. So what happens next? It really is up to all of us. So as you keep up with this case, here's something to think about. Pay attention to who benefits from how things are and who's the most vulnerable. And ask yourself, what role can you play in creating a music industry that's actually fair and just? Because real change, it doesn't happen overnight. But with enough courage, commitment, and yeah, a little bit of noise making, we can create a world where everyone feels safe, respected, and empowered to use their voice.